Hi, I'm Maggie. Thank you for stopping by Crafts the Charm today. I'm so glad you're here. Dollar Tree has these self-adhesive wall tiles. I'm sure you've seen them before, and I just love these. I wanted to make something with these that has a Mediterranean look. So you can use either this one that I'm using here with the white and blue, or you can use the one that has a sort of a silvery metal look to it. It doesn't matter which one you use. And to start, I'm going to cut it into 4 pieces so that it looks like 4 separate tiles. Now I'm going to paint these with chalk paint. So I just looked up pictures of tiles on the internet and picked a set of colors that I liked. I wanted something that was somewhat vibrant because I would really like that sort of sun-drenched Mediterranean look here. So this first color that I'm using is Folk Art Home Decor chalk paint in Vintage Mustard, and I just used colors that I already had, and I think that they looked great. So you can see with the Vintage Mustard, I'm painting basically around the flowers, and that's the only place I'm going to put this color. Of course, you should use whatever colors you like and put them wherever you think looks good. Now this is going to require 2 coats of every color. And you're seeing me paint this right now without a magnifying glass, but I paint much better with a very fine brush and a magnifying glass. This isn't easy to get into some of those thinner areas. So this is what that looks like after 2 coats. And now I want a red, so I'm going to use this Folk Art Home Decor chalk paint in the color Imperial. I think a more orangey red would look really pretty here as well, but this is what I had. And you can see I'm just painting that in that channel that is sort of around the flowers, the clover shape. And I will do 2 coats of that, but while that is drying, I'm going to move on to most of the negative space, and I'm going to paint this with Folk Art Home Decor chalk paint in Cascade. I absolutely love this color. I'm almost out of it, and I have to water it down a little bit to be able to paint with it. So I just painted the rest of the background with the Cascade, and I'm going to say maybe it would have been easier to do this by painting the whole thing in Cascade and then painting over it with the other colors, but this is how I did it. And I needed 3 coats of the Cascade. Now we could leave that as it is, but I really don't like that shiny plasticky blue that is left. So I'm now going to paint over the blue, and I'm going to paint over that with Folk Art Home Decor chalk paint in Nautical. I also don't have very much of this color, so I have to water this one down as well. And you can see now I am using a magnifying glass to paint here, so that's what that extra light is. So I'm just going to paint over every single raised bit of this. And hopefully you can tell, even on the video, how much better that looks where it's painted. It's no longer shiny. It looks like the rest of the paint. Now, I did this for 2 of the tiles, and I left the other 2 tiles the way they were. So you can decide which you think looks better. This is Folk Art Home Decor chalk paint in Java, and I'm going to use this to outline all of the shapes, all of the raised shapes. And I'm also going to use it to paint the features back onto the flowers and leaves. So there are little channels where those features are, so I'm just going to paint over those channels. And I'm going to use a very fine brush, but I'm not worried too much if my paint doesn't come out in a nice fine line, although that is the ideal. Now I feel like that outlining does give it more depth. Here you can see one tile, the one that I'm working on, has the outlining, and the one in the upper left corner doesn't. But what's going to make these look more like tiles is giving them a little bit of texture. And I don't want to really age them per se, I just want to make them look like they're maybe a ceramic or a stone sort of tile. So I'm taking a little bit of that Java chalk paint, getting as much off my brush as I dare, and then brushing very lightly over all of the tiles. So I'm not really trying to dry brush and get the raised areas. I'm really concentrating on those lower areas as well, because I'm trying to give a little bit of texture to the paint so that it looks like it was textured when it was painted. And I'm doing that over all of the tiles, the two that I outlined and the two that I didn't. Now I'm going to do the same thing again. This time I'm going to use Folk Art Home Decor chalk paint in Castle. It's a sort of putty color, and again I'm going to try to get as much off my brush as I can, and then just sort of dry brush in the areas, especially the areas that aren't raised, to give it just a little bit of texture. Now with the tiles all finished, I have this piece of thick cardboard from a cardboard box, and I have a square 14-inch wreath form, which I picked up at the Dollar Tree. And I'm going to cut this piece of cardboard. Initially, I cut it so that it fit well in the frame, so that it was tight. But then I decided I wanted it to sit a little lower in the frame, so I cut it down to about, I don't know, 13.5 inches square, something around there. And now I'm going to take some of that leftover cardboard, and I'm going to attach my tiles to it and then cut the cardboard so that it's maybe just a tiny bit smaller than the tiles, but basically the size of the tiles. Now the way these tiles work, the sticky part is only around the edges, and since I've cut the tile, the sticky part is not going to stick the tiles to the cardboard because it's only stuck to the tile along one or two edges. So I'm going to use some wood glue and glue the back of the tile to the cardboard and then cut around the tile. Now what I want is a grout look. So this next step, you probably can skip this step, but I cut these dowels to fit between the tiles. And I'm now going to paint them and the edges of the tiles with the Castle chalk paint. And with those all painted, I'm now using the wood glue to glue the tile cardboard and the wood dowels to the piece of cardboard that I cut to fit inside the wreath form. Now, I thought maybe the dowels would be a good stand-in for grout, but once I got them in there, I decided that is just not the look that I want. So I'm going to take some of this lightweight spackle, which I think I got at the Dollar Tree, but I may have got it somewhere else. For a while, the Dollar Tree wasn't carrying spackle, but it's carrying it again now. And I'm going to mix up, for me, I want to say it's about 1/8 of a cup of the spackle with some of that Chateau paint. And you want, I'm going to say, a thick peanut butter consistency here. Now, the good thing about the dowels is they're taking up some of that space between the tiles. So I'm just going to take my spackle and put it over the pieces of wood between the tiles. Now, I'm going to recommend, if you do this, that you Mod Podge your tiles first. We're eventually going to get to Mod Podging the tiles, but it's going to be much easier to wipe the spackle off of your tiles if you Mod Podge them first. But so I'm just using some craft sticks and pushing that between the tiles. And then I started with a wet Q-tip to sort of clean it off, but then I just used my finger. I felt that it looked better and more like the grout that you see between tiles. So now I'm going to Mod Podge my tiles, and I'm just using some matte Mod Podge here. I am not Mod Podging over the grout. My grout isn't dry yet. I don't know if you should do that. If it is dry, you probably should. And so I'm just going to put a coat of Mod Podge over each of the tiles. Now here I have a large paint stirrer. I have 4 of these. You can get these at Home Depot, or I think you can get them at Lowe's. I got mine at Home Depot. And these are the large ones. They come 3 to a package. I don't know how much they cost. They're pretty inexpensive. And I'm going to use these to create a sort of a frame for this. Now I don't want to miter the edges because I don't want it to look like a picture frame. I want it to look more like a window. So I'm going to cut 2 pieces so that they are exactly the same size as the tiles, and then 2 pieces which will be the same size as the tiles plus 2 widths of these paint stirrers. But I didn't do a very good job of making my tiles square, so this is going to be a little bit of a wonky frame for this. But I'm just going to mark those and then cut them with my little Stanley miter box. And it's just going to be straight cuts, so pretty straightforward. Because this is wonky, once I figured out where the wood pieces were supposed to go, I marked just bottom, top, left, and right on the cardboard around my tiles. And then I used a little bit of wood glue and some staples on the back to attach these pieces together. I used my spackle again to fill in the cracks between the pieces of wood. And then I did this off camera, but once it had dried, I just sanded these and I rounded the edges a little bit because I want this to look a little bit old. Now I've got a little bit of black acrylic paint here and I'm mixing some water with it, just a dot of it. And I'm just going to brush that over the frame, and I want this to show through the brown color that I'm going to put over it just a little bit, just to make it look a little bit aged and like it has some wood grain and texture to it. And with that done, I'm now going to add some apple barrel burnt umber acrylic paint into there and more water, and I'm going to brush that over the entire frame. And I would say just keep lightly layering paint and water onto this until you get the color that you like. What I ended up doing was then adding another coat of burnt umber mixed into my original mix, so mostly burnt umber, not so much black anymore, and water, and brushed that over. So this has basically 2 coats. Now I'm doing the front and the edges, but I'm not doing the back because I do plan to glue the back to that cardboard. And I don't know if paint has any impact on gluing, but I figure I'd rather have the raw wood surface glued to the cardboard. Now I'm going to Mod Podge over that wood frame. And with that now mostly dry, I'm putting some wood glue down on the cardboard around the tiles, and I'm just going to place that wood frame in place. It's a pretty tight fit, but there are gaps because, again, those tiles are not square, so they're a little wonky, and that's where there are going to be gaps. In other places, it's pretty tight. And now I think you could leave it like this, but I feel like I want to grout again between the tiles and the wood frame. So I'm mixing up some more of the spackle with the Chateau paint. Again, it's probably less than 1/8 of a cup, but it would depend, of course, on the size of your gaps. And I'm going to do the same thing, press it into those cracks, and then wipe it off of the surfaces with a damp towel this time. Now with that done, I've just placed the cardboard into the wreath form, and probably should have trimmed the cardboard a little bit, but my plan is to just staple the metal to the wood, just in each of the corners. But in some corners, the cardboard's sort of getting in my way, and you can see my cardboard is from a Lindt box. At Christmas, I do order quite a lot of Lindt chocolate for gifts, so now you see my little secret. So I'm just stapling that on the back. And I think you can skip this step, but I thought I would do it because that just makes it so easy to hang, to have that wreath form on the back of it. Plus, for my next step, I thought the wreath form would also be useful, although for the next step, you could just use a thumbtack. So the final thing I'm going to do is make a wreath for this to go over it, and I got these beautiful little stems at Joann Fabrics. They're just like little yellow balls. I wanted something that was a sort of a lemony look. Now, if you can't get these, I would say you can mix homemade model magic with yellow paint and make balls. I've done that before. I've made like faux berries with homemade model magic mixed with acrylic paint, and just stick some wire into them. You might want to hot glue the wire into them. The foliage is a sort of a lamb's ear color. Or I think something else that would look really nice here is a faux olive branch. They did sell those at the Dollar Tree. I don't know if they still do. I grabbed them when I saw them because I once bought a faux olive wreath and it was really expensive. So olive or something lemony I think would go really well with this sort of Mediterranean theme. So I just basically twisted those into a circle together, just two of them, and used some green florist wire to wire them together in two places. And then I have this white silky, I think it might actually be the sash of a dress or something. I don't know what I thought it was ribbon, but it's been sewed together, so I think it might be the sash of a dress. And I'm just going to use that to hang the wreath over the front, and I'm just going to put it through that wreath form in the back and then just tie it into a square knot. The first time I did it, I got the length wrong, so I just had to untie it and retie it to get the length correct. Now this is really lightweight. It's only a few ounces. It looks heavy, I think. I think it looks like real tile. So here it is. Please tell me what you think in the comments. Tell me if you would have painted it a different color. Tell me if you would have put that little wreath on top, because I'm not too sure about that. And tell me what color ribbon I should have used, because I'm pretty sure that cream ribbon isn't working very well, but I'm not sure what color to use. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you enjoy this sort of content, please subscribe to Crafts the Charm. Thank you for spending time with me today. Take care.